This is Binod Shankar and you're listening to the Real Finance Mentor podcast from therealfinancementor.com. The Real Finance Mentor is your go-to resource for insight and inspiration on careers in finance, CFA and more. I would think, why this podcast? Well, my goal is to deliver insight and inspiration for your finance career by making it, one, relatable. This is not theoretical stuff. We zero in on the critical, practical issues. Number two, authentic. No bullshit, no sidestepping. The topics, guests, and questions are all from that perspective. And number three, take a chartered accountant and CFA charter holder, add 17 plus years as a corporate warrior, mix in 10 years of entrepreneurship, throw in a decade of full-time CFA training, add speaking, mentoring, cycling, and mountaineering, and that's me. Welcome to the Real Finance Mentor, or as I call it, RFM. Hi everyone, this is Binod Shankar here with the Real Finance Mentor podcast, the podcast that delivers insight and inspiration for your finance careers. Right? So every time we have a new guest, a guest with an interesting story, an inspirational story that someone I've known and someone whose story I would like to present to my audience. Now, my next guest is Dhruvish Pujara. Now, Dhruvish isn't exactly an ex-student of mine, like in my previous episodes, but we have been connected via social media for some time now. I've been tracking his progress over the years, and I've been impressed by what he's achieved, more so after I had a long and detailed conversation with him quite recently. Now, Dhruvish has a bachelor's in commerce from Ahmedabad University, after which he qualified as a chartered accountant. So that's one thing in common between us. He then worked in Axis Bank, a large Indian private bank, as a deputy manager. And recently, he moved into sell-side equity research in the financial capital of India, Mumbai, where he specializes in the BFSI, banking and financial services industry. He's also, by the way, interestingly, a marathon runner, but that's just all the basic facts. There is a lot more, as you will find out during the duration of this podcast. So welcome to the show, Dhruvish.
Yeah, hi Binod. Firstly, thanks for the opportunity.
Right. So I'm going to straight away jump into something that really impacted you, probably transformed you, right? You recently qualified as a chartered accountant, so congratulations. But it was a long and frustrating journey because you suffered a few failures along the way. Now, from my experience, failure often triggers introspection, action, and success. So I have three separate questions for you. Number one, tell me why the failures happened.
So, see, Binod, failures happened mainly due to four reasons. Firstly, it was mainly due to fear of failure. Okay. So back then, I was more of a output-oriented person and less of process-driven. So I mean, I would think about the outcome all the time and not trust the process. I would think, what if I fail? What if I don't clear in the first attempt? Right. Second reason was bad time management. Right. So due to my inquisitive nature, I ended up wasting a lot of time going into the needless depth of my favorite subjects in CA, and thus would end up covering just 50 to 60% of the syllabus. Right. Then the third reason was I took some good amount of time to understand the game of reps. So what I mean is the game of repetitions, right? So it is a strategy which works very efficiently in CA. So what I mean is reading 1,000 pages 2 times is less effective than reading 400 pages 5 times. Not to mention the letter takes less time. And the fourth reason would be I would give up before the exams were over, right? So let's say after having a bad paper, I would take so much pressure that I would end up spoiling my other papers in that attempt. So yeah, that's it.
Right. So that was the why. Now, how did you manage to finally nail it? What changes did you make to ensure success?
So I took some time, not just to understand, but also accept my shortcomings, right? So now, most of the time, like accepting your shortcomings is not an easy thing to do, at least for a person like me. So mainly my shortcomings were three. Okay. First was lack of self-belief. Second was bad time management. And third was not performing under pressure. So firstly, I accepted them and I started working on them relentlessly. So luckily, I took up running after my second failed attempt. So running gave me a lot of self-belief. After I ran my first half marathon, it made me believe that okay, there is a light at the end of tunnel if I don't stop. Okay, so then for time management, I would reach out to my friends who had cleared their CA, who were way smarter than me, and they would guide me on the approach to take and on the execution part. Then lastly, to deal with the exam pressure, I gave 10 to 12 practice sessions, practice exams of each paper at private coaching institute and at ICI mock test. So that's how it went.
Now, chartered accountancy can often be a uh, transformational experience. At least it was for me when I did my CA. So, how did the CA journey change you as a person?
Okay. So it was certainly transformational. I mean, see, CA was something which consciously or subconsciously got connected to my identity, not just when I joined the course, but it happened back in 2000. I mean, in the 11th grade. So it was a story I had sold myself for years that, okay, I'm going to do this, right? So there was always this internal pressure to maintain your self image and behave in a way that is consistent with your self image, right? So after some failures in CA final, when your mother comes to you and asks you to assess other career options, since CA final was not happening, right? So then somewhere you start questioning your competency as a person on a very fundamental level. And trust me, that is not a very great, a very comfortable place to be in. So, I mean, after a lot of self talk, you take a decision that, okay, I'm going to do this. And that decision taken somewhere in the middle of night changes you to the very core. I mean, you really got to owe it to yourself. Okay. So also secondly, it's more about the mind block sometimes, right? So I mean, there are 300,000 CAs who have done it. Like, so of course you can do it too. I mean, to put some context, you are not out there creating a city on Mars, right? So I mean, it's doable with some work. Also, I understood that in the long run, persistence matters more than your intellect. I mean, it's a 40-year career, right? Like you start at the age of 25, you retire at 65. So it's a marathon, not a sprint. Okay. And anyone is capable of turning the tables. But yes, it comes with a lot of work and, of course, patience. So coming to general stuff, of course, it did help me. Like CA did help me how to think. It improved my thought processes, helped me to come out of my shell, helped me understand what was happening around. And that's it.
Now, Dhruvish, it can be quite difficult to switch sectors, careers, even if you're young. I mean, you are not a chart account all India rank holder or a first attempt pass or an MBA pass out from a top school, right? Yet you managed to make the important career jump from working in a large bank in credit risk management, right? To sell side equity research, which is much sought after by many people. Now, this is quite unusual and admirable. So, I'm very curious, what was the process you followed?
Sure. So that's a very good question. Right. So initially, when I used to reach out to people working in the industry, they would tell me that, okay, without a rank, without first attempt, without a big four articleship, without a tier one MBA or a CFA level two for that matter, it is quite unlikely that you can get in. But I never accepted this statement, and I always had the mindset of what if I can get in without all these dispensable tags, right? So in the first 3 months, I talked to close to 35 to 40 people working in the industry to understand the industry dynamics. For example, when does the hiring happen? How does it happen? What do they prefer from the candidate? What do they look for? How is sell side different from buy side? How each side makes money? How it is less difficult which one is less difficult to enter as a novice, what are the work-life balances in each of them, etc. So basically, all this helped me to get clarity on what I wanted and also what was possible given my profile, right? So after this, uh, this clarity helped me to streamline my efforts since I had a limited bandwidth due to my full-time job, banking job, right? So after that, the next 3 months, after I got clarity, I spent close to 400 hours understanding the sector which I was interested in, since that was the only reason which I based on which I could have differentiated myself. I was trying to connect with all the lead analysts of the sector, BFSI sector in the top 20 firms of India by messaging, cold calling them. I mean, I would mail them my stock page, my models, result note, annual report analysis, like whatnot. And this went on for like straight 6 months, and then finally I got a breakthrough. So to sum up, clarity on what I wanted, second, domain knowledge, and thirdly, crazy networking helped me.
That's fantastic, Dhruvish. You mentioned your mindset as the key factor that helped you a lot while trying to switch careers, right? So tell
Yeah.
me more about these character traits of yours that make up this mindset and what role they played.
So see, two character traits that helped me. First is persistence, and the second is stubbornness. So not being stubborn about what you want, but also flexible about the approach, right? So they of course did play a very crucial role. So basically, it's about keep hearing a no and not lose enthusiasm till you hear a yes. So it was something which I learned very early on in my CA, after my CA failures, right? Okay. So for a minute, let's talk about the bigger picture by bringing in some statistics. So basically, India is a country with 1.37 billion people, and it has two-thirds of its population between the age of 15 to 64, right? So getting what you want is always a challenge. I mean, it's dead competitive. Also, there are around 300,000 chartered accountants, 50,000 CFA charter holders, 50,000 tier 1, tier 2 MBAs. So all in all, 2 lakh eligible candidates to get a core finance role, right? So let's assume 50% of them want to work in core finance. So now the core finance industry. So when I say core finance, I mean the corporate finance role, the treasury roles in bank, the equity research roles, the investment banking roles, the private equity roles, and the venture capitalist roles are not more than 20,000 in the country, right? So let's assume a hiring rate of 20%. So considering the industry growth and the attrition rate, right? So there are only 4,000 openings for 200,000 eligible candidates in a year. So basically, what my point here is that the odds of winning are just 2%, right? So with this backdrop, differentiating strategy like setting yourself apart from the crowd and backed by a relentless pursuit of hearing a no till you hear a yes is a becomes a prerequisite, right? Even for a qualified individual. So I think that is what helped me.
So Dhruvish, you worked in credit analysis at Axis Bank for a while. How did that prepare you, if at all, for a career in BFSI equity research?
It did help me to a certain extent. I mean, I developed a decent understanding about the credit underwriting process. I mean, the focus is on the borrower's intent, his repayment capacity, the collateral, the leverage, the other industry dynamics in which the borrower is operating, right? So, see, what helped me was understanding the differences in the underwriting process of respective banks by talking to a lot of people, right? But again, there were 10 different things which I had to learn on my own. So, having said that, BFSI equity research is more about finding out who is doing the business and then looking, of course, at the valuation. So, the part in the focus is forecasting the key trends of the industry and also the macro growth drivers of the sector, right? So in a nutshell, banking job was more of a subset of my current work. But yes, of course, it did give me an edge over someone who was a novice.
Right. So, Dhruvesh, many finance graduates aspire to break into equity analysis, right? But many of them have little or no idea as to what the role entails in practical terms. So, let's talk details. Tell me about a typical day at work for you.
Yeah, sure. So in a sell-side equity research, an associate typically works on updating the financial models of the coverage companies, right? Then secondly, report writing to some extent. Thirdly, attending quarterly result conference calls. And then fourthly, working on client query. Okay. Then of course, then you get to do a lot of channel checks by meeting people at the ground level. And that's, I think, the best part of the job, in my opinion. Then what when you are initiating a new coverage, you get hands-on understanding of of that company, and also the sector in which the also the segment of the sector in which the company is operating. So all in all, it's a lot of grunt work with lots of data and Excel work with stringent deadlines in a very high-paced competitive environment.
So, you
So
work in a
yeah.
fairly large team, is what you told me, right? With about 30 plus analysts, a team that's a mix of chartered accountants, MBAs, CFA candidates, and charter holders, etc. So, I've got a few questions here. From what you've seen, number one, what technical competencies should one have to succeed in equity research?
So firstly, I mean, love for capital markets in general. Like people here love capital markets. So of course, the modeling, analytical reasoning skills, the report writing skills comes later. Also, ability to distill a large amount of information into specific takeaways in a short amount of time is necessary here. Also, of course, in-depth understanding of the sector you are covering goes without saying, and also inbuilt curiosity and questioning mind, and then relentlessly searching for those answers is very important to survive, keep aside, succeed in this industry.
And my second question would be, what behavioral competency should one have to succeed in equity research?
So one needs to be prepared for long hours round the year. I mean, it's not a role for someone who is seeking a 9 to 5 job, right? Also, sell side is a sales job going ahead. I mean, you are selling your idea to the buy side guy. Now, idea is basically in the form of your story and a narrative which is backed by the numbers, right? So also one needs to be able to communicate and pitch the idea really well. Also, delivering under pressure on multiple projects going on simultaneously is very much required here.
So, Dhruvesh, you did say that equity research is a deadline driven, intense activity, right? That can burn people out. And that partly for this reason, many try and move out of this sector. So, what roles do they typically move out to?
So it is quite difficult to move to the buy side, but if not impossible. But I've seen people with 2 3 years of sell side experience move to portfolio management services or alternative investment funds in the buy side. But that requires you to have a good understanding of at least 2 3 sectors. Also, I've seen people with 5 to 10 years of work experience move to asset management companies, the mutual funds in the buy side. Then, secondly, very rarely the transition to PE, VC, private equity, venture capital happens. Thirdly, someone who is okay with the long hours and moves to investment banking, who are fascinated by the deal making thing. Then, lastly, some who are tired with long working hours exit the industry by moving into investor relation or corporate strategy or department of a company in the sector they covered over the years and sell side. So that's it. Yeah.
Now, you did mention to me earlier about mentors, right? Now, I believe strongly in the power of mentorship as they help you learn a lot and hence transition, etc., especially if you're new in a job. You told me also that you have a mentor at work. So I have three questions for you. Number one, how did you and the mentor connect?
Yeah. So actually, I ended up founding him on LinkedIn when I was cold calling, messaging 15, 20 people working in the industry.
Right. And I'm curious, what kind of support did you and do you get from the mentor?
Sure. So yeah, firstly, a lot of insights about the sector and the industry. Then, of course, it helps you defining the focus at work. Then, where and how to save time, optimize the work, Excel shortcuts, how to improve modeling and report writing skills, recommendations on what to read, right? Then you have the discussions on how the macro head and the tailwinds impact the sector, etc. So the approach we follow is that I must pre-read a task which is given, and then the discussion happens instead of spoon feeding the concept to me.
So how invaluable has this mentoring been so far?
I mean, it has been like a blessing, to be honest. So your learning rate becomes 2x. And also, when your curiosity to learn more is channelized in the right direction, it's a feeling like no other.
Let's talk about something else that we both have in common apart from chartered accountancy, right? You're a long distance runner and have run the Mumbai and Delhi marathons, which is a full 42.2 kilometers, right? And you also ran a 50-kilometer ultra marathon. You also completed a 365-day running challenge and was the pace setter at two high-profile marathon events in Ahmedabad. And throughout, you almost clocked about 5,000 kilometers over 3 years. So I have a couple of questions here for you, right? The first being, why and how did you take up running?
So, firstly, I'll answer the how. Okay. So it started as an activity to reduce stress during CA exam preparation, right? So I started liking it since the release of dopamine in the body due to sweating improved my mood, and which in turn improved my efficiency to study. So after the exams, I ended up registering for a half marathon just a fortnight away after my CA exam. So with negligible training, I went to the start line and with a goal to finish it without stopping or walking. So to my surprise, I could do it, but it took everything out of me. And I had never pushed myself to such limits before. And I also cried at the finish line. So all in all, that day changed my life forever. And since that day, I got a lot of self-belief. Also, I had high fever for and weakness for 3 days after that day. But that day, I really learned that okay, if you hang in there, then you can get what you want. So now I'll answer the why. So that has basically three reasons. Firstly, it gives me immense self-belief that I can do whatever I set my mind to. Secondly, it's a thing which I don't need to rely on someone to get my own happiness. I mean, I can do it anywhere wherever I want and whenever I want. Thirdly, that satisfaction which a hard run gives you is unparalleled. I mean, it's early in the morning, before sunrise, you are out there proving a point to yourself. So uh, it really helps me in other aspects of life as well.
Talking about other aspects of life, so how exactly has long distance running affected your mindset?
So see, it has made me more persistent and patient. So it's a sport in which there are more bad days than good days, right? So it has taught me that okay, no matter how hard you work, there is still a good chance that you will fail, but that's okay. Okay. So I mean, you simply can't stop. Like you just have to keep going, irrespective of the success or failure you encounter. I mean.
Right. So we come to the last question of this very interesting interview. It's a question I ask all my podcast guests, right? What are three career tips that you would give youngsters who are still in college or just entering the workforce?
So, firstly, I would say clarity is power. I mean, getting clarity on what you want to do, and more importantly, why you want to do it, right? So, if you know these two things, then sooner or later, I believe that you can get what you want. So, now again, this is easier said than done. Okay, so you might not have clarity on day one, but if you keep looking for it, then eventually you will get it in 2 to 4 years if you're lucky. Second tip would be I would say intelligence is overrated and persistence is underrated. So, I mean, you don't have to be the smartest person in the room, but of course, you can try to be the grittiest. And so, there is this quote by Denzel Washington that if you hang around the barber shop long enough, sooner or later, you are going to get a haircut. Third tip would be networking is more important than your degree. I mean, even if you're the smartest person in the room, but you can't go far unless 100 people know you and you know them, right? But having said that, networking should be done with the intent to give, and uh, it will come back to you in unexpected ways. So I think that three tips sums up.
So basically, about clarity is power, fact that intelligence is overrated and persistence is underrated. And the third tip is networking is more important than your degree. And I couldn't have put it better myself. So thank you, Dhruvish, for being so open. Uh, you once asked me why I invited you to this podcast as a guest, right? You were probably surprised and you probably thought that who would want to listen to you. But I find your story quite captivating. I'll tell you why. Uh, from this episode, from this interview, I mean, you're from a tier 2 city. You failed academically initially, but you learned from that and you nailed the tough CA qualification. You were stuck in a career in credit risk in banking, but your obsession and persistence and networking skills got you a great mentor and also helped secure your dream job in equity research. You were not very active physically, but you became a super fit endurance athlete, right? I mean, 5,000 kilometers over 3 years of running is amazing. So I think you've learned a lot about life and career. I think you've also become highly self-aware. Since this podcast is about ordinary people who do extraordinary things, and I'm very keen on transformational stories because, as we know, many people screw up early in life, and they need to know that failure is not fatal. And yours is definitely a transformational story. So thank you once again for opening up, for sharing your insightful and inspirational story with the audience of the RFM podcast. And I think your mindset will take you far in career and life. And I wish you the very best.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. I appreciate it.
This podcast was brought to you by The Real Finance Mentor. Thank you so much for listening, and I really hope you found it insightful and inspirational. If you did enjoy this episode, please drop us a review and spread the word. And be sure to check out more exclusive content on therealfinancementor.com and my LinkedIn profile, which is Binod Shankar CFA. Let's keep in touch. Just add your name to the mailing list on therealfinancementor.com and we'll tell you about new episodes, plus book reviews, upcoming events, and blogs. Till the next time, onwards and upwards.